when Shedeur Sanders stepped into the Cleveland spotlight. Comparisons to Baker Mayfield were inevitable but misleading. Mayfield played with a chip. Sanders plays with purpose. There's no forced bravado here, just a steady defiance that demands the franchise catch up to a new standard of quarterbacking. And that standard isn't about stats. It's about presence. Sanders doesn't just want the ball. He makes you believe he should have it. The city's been waiting for that kind of clarity.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Even if the front office still doesn't know what to do with it. What Cleveland craves isn't another try-hard leader. It's someone who refuses to lead by permission. Sanders is that figure. But unless the organization stops measuring him by old molds and starts empowering what he uniquely brings, they'll once again turn potential into a missed era. Leadership can't be micromanaged. It has to be unleashed. The most powerful person in the Cleveland Browns organization isn't wearing a headset. He's not calling plays from the sideline. He's not sitting in on film sessions or drawing up red zone packages. He's sitting up top in the owner's box, and his message couldn't be clearer. Shedeur Sanders is a future. Jimmy Haslam is done waiting. He's not playing the vague political game that most owners play. This is full-throttle belief. This is calculated public commitment. When your grandchildren are rocking Shedeur Sanders jerseys at team events, that's not casual support. That's a signal, a warning shot, a declaration that the franchise has finally found someone worth building around. But instead of celebrating that clarity, Cleveland has found itself stuck in the most Browns problem of all time, resistance from within. Because while Haslam is all in, Coach Kevin Stefanski is still stuck in neutral. His play calling, his approach, his entire football philosophy. It's cautious, controlled, familiar, and in a league that moves at the speed of boldness, Stefanski's hesitance is becoming a bigger liability than anyone wants to admit. Let's be honest, this isn't a talent debate. No one's questioning whether Shedeur Sanders can play. His arm? Legit. His football IQ? Proven. His leadership? Obvious. What's really at stake here is something much bigger than stats. It's about style, confidence, control. And that's where the tension between Sanders and Stefanski has come to define this entire Brown season. Shedeur plays with emotion. He leads with authenticity. He's confident, unfiltered, and never pretends to be anything he's not. And in a city like Cleveland, where the fans are emotionally wired, fully invested, and desperately tired of half measures, that kind of presence matters. Cleveland doesn't just need a good quarterback. It needs a quarterback who owns a moment. Shedeur does that. But if you only watch the game plan, you'd think he was being treated like a project. Stefanski has kept him on a leash, not just in terms of play calling, but in trust. Every decision feels like it's being made out of fear of failure, not belief in possibility. Short passes, predictable runs, drive-killing conservatism. It's like Stefanski's trying to keep the game inside a box, and Shedeur Sanders was never meant to live in a box. That's not development. That's suppression. And it's starting to show, not just in the offensive stats, not just in the win column, but in the body language, in the sidelines, in the post-game pressers. There's a gap growing between the player the team wants to follow and the system being forced around him. Meanwhile, Jimmy Haslam is trying to drag this franchise into a new era, an era where leadership doesn't have to come in a muted package, an era where boldness is rewarded, not micromanaged. He sees in Shedeur what the city's been missing, someone who can take the pressure, flip it into power, and turn belief into culture. But culture change doesn't happen just because ownership wants it. It happens when everyone aligns. And right now, Stefanski is the friction. There's a reason this story is drawing national attention. It's not just about Cleveland. It's about the wider tension across the league, between the traditionalist coaches who still want their quarterbacks to be quiet extensions of the headset, and the modern reality that leaders look different now. The old guard still wants their QBs to speak softly, follow the script, and never color outside the lines. Shedeur Sanders shows up with permanent marker and draws a new playbook in real time. He plays with edge, energy, and confidence. Not the kind that asks for permission, The kind that shows up already knowing it belongs. And yes, that's going to rattle some of the league's older sensibilities. But that doesn't make it wrong. It makes it necessary. The Browns' problem isn't that they have a quarterback with too much personality. Their problem is that they have a head coach who's not ready to coach someone with that kind of presence. That's why this isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's an identity. Cleveland has been trying to find itself for decades. Every time a new quarterback is drafted, the hype machine spins up, the hope kicks in, and the city rallies. And every time, it ends the same way. Promising start, awkward tension, slow fade. But this one feels different. Because it is different. Shedeur Sanders doesn't need the city to rally around him. He is the rallying point. He doesn't need to be asked to lead. He's already leading. He has the intangible thing that separates good from great. The ability to walk into a fractured locker room, a frustrated city, and give everyone a reason to believe again. And instead of embracing that, the coaching staff is holding it back. Which brings us to the core issue, trust. Jimmy Haslam clearly trusts Shedeur. His actions speak louder than any press conference. He sees not just the talent, but the personality, the presence, the impact. Stefanski, on the other hand, still hasn't let go of his default coaching settings. He's still treating the quarterback position like a chess piece, still avoiding risk, still clinging to control. But Shedeur Sanders isn't a chess piece. He's a catalyst. He doesn't fit into a safe offense because his leadership isn't safe. It's powerful. It's emotional. It breaks norms and invites criticism. And that's exactly what great leaders do. The Browns have spent years searching for this guy. Now they have him, and they're hesitating. How much longer do they wait before they realize that the only thing holding them back isn't the quarterback? It's their refusal to adapt to what leadership looks like in 2025. There's a path forward. It starts with trust, with letting go of outdated ideals, with allowing Shedeur to be the quarterback he's built to be, not the one the coaching staff wants to shape in their image. He doesn't need shaping. He needs space. Space to lead. Space to create. Space to energize a franchise that's been running on fumes for years. And the longer they resist that shift, the more they risk losing something far bigger than games. They risk losing the very identity they've been trying to rebuild. Cleveland doesn't need another traditional quarterback. Cleveland needs Shedeur Sanders. Fully empowered. Fully trusted. Fully unleashed. And if they don't realize that soon, the story of this season won't be about what he could have done. It'll be about what the Browns were too afraid to let happen. If you're nodding your head right now, or yelling at the screen, because you've seen this cycle before, let's talk about it. Drop your take in the comments. What do you think is holding this team back from going all in on Shedeur? Hit like if you're ready for this franchise to finally stop playing scared. Share this with someone who still thinks charisma doesn't win games. And subscribe if you're here for the real conversations about leadership legacy and what it really takes to change a team's future. The most frustrating part about all of this? The Browns should be ahead of the curve right now. They have the piece that so many franchises spend years, decades, trying to find. Shedeur Sanders isn't a gamble. He isn't a developmental prospect. He's a fully formed leader who just walked into one of the most historically volatile positions in all professional sports and brought clarity. The Cleveland Browns, for the first time in a long time, don't have a quarterback problem. They have a courage problem. It's not about whether Shedeur has earned the right to lead. He's done that. He's doing it every single week. It's about whether the people around him are ready to let him. It's about whether the coaching staff and some of the fan base can get over their fear of different, because that's what this is, a fear of different, a discomfort with a quarterback who doesn't fit the mold, a resistance to the very thing the Browns say they want. Leadership, fire, identity, edge. Kevin Stefanski was brought in to stabilize, and for a while, that worked. He brought calm to chaos. But now, the very thing that once made him valuable is becoming the obstacle. He's still trying to keep the ship steady, when what this team needs is someone to light it up. Shedeur brings that light. And right now, Stefanski is the dimmer switch. What's wild is that everyone outside the organization can see it. National analysts, former players, even rival fan bases. They can all see that Shedeur Sanders is the guy. They can all see that Cleveland's biggest mistake right now would be failing to build around him. And yet, week after week, the Browns keep walking this weird tightrope, acknowledging that they got something special while refusing to act like it. That kind of hesitation, that's what kills momentum. Because in today's NFL, the window doesn't wait. You either lean into your identity or the league passes you by. You can't ride the fence. You can't half commit to a cultural shift. You either let Shedeur be Shedeur, or you slowly drain the very spark that makes him so rare. That spark, the confidence, the energy, the charisma, it's not extra. It's essential. Shedeur's leadership style doesn't need translation. It resonates on its own. Teammates respond to him. The city responds to him. The owner responds to him. But the coach, the person calling the shots every Sunday, still unsure, still overthinking, still trying to funnel a franchise quarterback into a template that was never built for someone like him. And that disconnect, it's not just philosophical, it's operational. You can't tell a team to rally behind a guy while also protecting him from being himself. You can't say he's our future and then game plan like he's a backup. That's not support. That's sabotage in slow motion. What Jimmy Haslam understands, and what Stefanski has embraced, is that quarterbacks like this change everything. Not just the scoreboard, the building, the culture, the city. Look at what Shedeur Sanders already represents. He's a quarterback who doesn't just show up to play football. He shows up to shift energy, to lead with authenticity, to challenge the old school thinking that says confidence must be toned down and charisma must be contained. And that challenge, it's making a lot of people uncomfortable. But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's time the Browns stop building around what's comfortable. That's what they've done for years. And where has that gotten them? A carousel of forgettable quarterbacks. A rotating cast of coaching philosophies. Brief flashes of success surrounded by a whole lot of disappointment. Comfort hasn't worked. Control hasn't worked. And yet, the second someone comes in with a different energy, an energy that doesn't shrink to fit the system but expands it, the instinct is to slow him down, tame him, keep the old way alive, even if that old way has never delivered the future anyone wants. It's not about running the ball more. It's not about easing in your quarterback. It's about choosing what kind of team you want to be. Shedeur Sanders forces that choice. You can't build a winning culture around a quarterback like him unless you trust him. And that trust has to show up in the way you call plays, the way you talk about him, the way you design the entire structure of your offense. He's not here to fill a role. He's here to redefine it. That's what Haslam sees. The jersey moments, the public support, the insider endorsements, they're all part of a larger vision. Haslam isn't just propping up a new quarterback. He's trying to pull this team into the future. A future that doesn't look like the old-school Browns. A future where personality, passion, and presence matter just as much as arm strength and pocket awareness. And frankly, the rest of the building needs to catch up. If Stefanski can't adapt, if he can't recognize that leadership now looks and sounds different than it did 5 years ago, then maybe he's not the guy to lead this team into the era Haslam is envisioning. And if that's the case, then change isn't just coming. It's necessary. Because every week they don't fully commit to Shedeur Sanders, they risk losing more than just games. They risk losing him. Losing the culture he could have built. Losing the identity he could have defined. Losing the one shot they might have at something sustainable. Other franchises are watching this unfold. Make no mistake. They know what Shedeur is. And they know that Cleveland has a history of not knowing what to do with talent until it's already gone. If the Browns want to prove that history wrong, it starts now. No more hiding behind, it's too soon. No more pretending that leadership only looks one way. No more tiptoeing around what's obvious to everyone. Shedeur Sanders is already the guy. What he needs now is a system to believe it too. If you've been watching this play out with the same mix of hope and frustration, you're not alone. It's time to say out loud, this franchise is standing on the edge of something real, and the only thing holding it back is fear. Fear of change. Fear of energy that can't be micromanaged. Fear of a quarterback who doesn't fit the traditional mold because he's already exceeding it. But fear doesn't win championships. Trust does. Boldness does. Authenticity does. Shedeur Sanders has already proven he's ready to lead. The question now is whether the Browns are finally ready to follow. At this point, the question isn't, is Shedeur Sanders ready? It's, why is Cleveland still acting like it isn't? Because let's call it for what it is. Every week this team hesitates to fully back Sanders is another week spent coddling a coaching philosophy that's been outdated since before this roster was even assembled. Kevin Stefanski isn't coaching scared. He's coaching like he's trying to avoid accountability. Like if he just sticks to his old formula long enough, it'll all magically work out. But what he's not seeing, or maybe refusing to see, is that this formula doesn't work when you're dealing with a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders. Because Shedeur isn't the formula. He's the variable that breaks it. The confidence, the composure, the natural charisma. Those aren't just personality traits. They're performance enhancers. They lift the locker room. They give a frustrated fan base something to believe in. And they make the difference between another rebuilding year and a legitimate turning point. And it's so obvious. When Shedeur steps on the field, there's a different energy. You feel it. He doesn't just manage the huddle. He owns it. He doesn't just run the offense, he defines it. Even in limited moments, even under conservative game plans, he shows flashes of the kind of leadership you can't coach, can't scheme, can't manufacture. You just have it, or you don't. And Shedeur has it. But instead of leaning into that energy, the Browns are still trying to mold him into something less. Less expressive, less bold, less dangerous to the status quo. And that's where the real damage is happening. Not in the losses themselves, but in the wasted potential. In the slow erosion of trust that happens when a player shows up ready to lead, and the people above him keep telling him to wait. For what? For Stefanski to feel comfortable? For the system to catch up? For the media cycle to calm down? That's not leadership. That's fear disguised as patience. And that's the type of thinking that got this franchise stuck in the first place. Look around the league. Teams that thrive in this era don't just allow players like Sanders to lead. They build everything around them. They tailor the offense. They empower the personality. They trust the instincts. Because they know that in 2025, leadership isn't about who follows the rules the best. It's about who owns the moment, who lifts the team, and who isn't afraid to be seen. And that's what Shedeur does every time he speaks, every time he moves, every time he plays. He owns the moment. He welcomes the attention. Not in a self-absorbed way, but in a way that says, I'm not here to survive. I'm here to change things. And that is exactly what Cleveland needs. But right now, the biggest obstacle to that change isn't Shedeur's development. It's the organization's refusal to fully commit to what's right in front of them. You can't be halfway in on a culture shift. You can't talk about transforming the franchise while you're still running the same playbook that protected QBs who weren't even close to Shedeur's caliber. This is a point in the timeline where successful franchises pull the trigger, where they say, this is who we are now. This is our leader. We trust him. We're building everything around him. And when they do, it works. Because when you back your quarterback fully, not just with press conference quotes or symbolic gestures, but with actual strategy, you unlock the best version of that player. And the best version of Shedeur Sanders? That a franchise-changing force. But he needs the room to lead, the freedom to grow, the trust to make mistakes and still be the guy. And right now, it's not clear the Browns are ready to give that to him. Which is wild because Jimmy Haslam is, that's the part that should blow your mind. The billionaire owner, the guy who normally sits behind the curtain and lets the front office take the heat, is out here making statements. He's not just casually praising Shedeur. He's setting the tone, the jerseys, the public backing, the media leaks. It's all a message. This is who we believe in. And when the owner believes in a quarterback this loudly, it usually doesn't end well for the coach who refuses to follow suit. That's the clock ticking behind the scenes. And this isn't just about play calling. It's about alignment. Right now, the Browns are fractured. Haslam is leaning forward, pushing the organization to adapt, evolve, and rally behind a quarterback who brings something real to the table. Stefanski, meanwhile, is stuck playing not to lose, calling games like it's still about protecting the scheme instead of unleashing the player. And let's be real, If those two visions don't align soon, one of them is going to lose the war. And it won't be the guy who signs the checks. That's why this isn't just a quarterback story. It's a franchise-defining moment. Because if Cleveland misses this, if they waste Shedeur's rookie years tiptoeing around his leadership, trying to tame the very qualities that make him special, then they'll have no one to blame but themselves. Not the fans, not the media, not the pressure, just themselves. The Browns spent decades trying to find the guy, the quarterback who could really take over, who didn't just show up but stood up, who didn't shrink in big moments, who was the moment. Now they have him. And instead of going all in, they're second-guessing him from the sidelines. That's not how winning teams are built. That's not how culture shifts are born. The NFL doesn't wait for you to get comfortable. It rewards the bold, the decisive, the teams that recognize their opportunity in the moment and don't let it slip. This is Cleveland's. If they hesitate now, they won't just be doing a disservice to Sanders. They'll be doing it to the entire city. To every fan who sat through the revolving door quarterbacks, the empty slogans, the maybe next years. This could be next year. This could be the shift. But only if they stop holding back the one guy who's clearly ready to lead them forward. If you're watching all of this unfold and you're just as fired up or frustrated as we are, let it be known. Drop your take in the comments. Do you think the coaching staff is ready to adapt, or is it time for a bigger shakeup? Hit that like button if you're done watching potential get micromanaged. Share this with every Cleveland fan who needs to hear the truth about what's really holding this team back. And subscribe to stay locked in on every move, every moment, and every meltdown that defines the future of this franchise.